This is the moment I became the second fastest 2x2 solver in Oceania. But hang on, let's go back a bit. February 10th, 2024. I got my first official sub 1.5 average of 1.47. I knew after getting this I was going to go for OCR2 as it was only a small improvement to 144. Little did I know what would happen over the coming months. Round 2 was an alright average with some good solves and some bad solves, ending in a 1.86 average. Finals unfortunately started with a counting 3 due to a corner twist, but I pulled it back with 3 sub 2s for a 2.32 average coming second. However, I wasn't too annoyed at round 2 and finals averages because I'd already gotten a PR average in round 1. A few weeks later, I had Altona with 3 more rounds of 2x2. Round 1 started okay with a 1.24, a 2.19, and a 1.80. The counting 1.8 wasn't ideal, but after a 1.20 on the 4th, I was pretty sure I had a shot. My best possible average? 1.41. I needed a 129 or better to get OCR2, and when I saw the scramble, I knew it was possible. Sadly, I stopped the timer one move off from a 102. This would have given me a 1.41 average, but I knew I would have some fails, so I wasn't too annoyed. The following day, I had round 2 and finals. Round 2 didn't start very well with a 1.31, plus 2, and a 1.90. Then I got a 111 on the third solve and a 112 on the fourth solve, plus 2 again. The final solve was a nice 153, meaning that the average was 132 without the plus 2s, which would have been 25th in the world at the time. This fail was quite disappointing after I'd already choked it in round 1. The scrambles in finals weren't the best, but I still solved quite well on them and got a 1.65 average coming second. The next competition was cubing at the Game Expo, a small competition in a loud venue.
The loudest venue in the world.
Round 1 started with 2 pretty good solves, 1.50 and 1.64, and 2 not great solves, 2.69 and 2.22. The last solve was a 199, giving me a 194 average, which I wasn't too happy with, but there was still 2 more rounds. Something I realized after round 1 is that I was spending a lot of time after the cube arrived trying to calm my nerves, but it wasn't really working. So for round 2, I tried going straight in. This worked quite well, starting with a 115, 225, and a 137. If I got a good solve on the next one, I would have a chance. With a 1.36 on the 4th, I needed a 1.60 for OCR2, and this is how the last solve went. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a solution good enough for a 1.60. In finals, I messed up most of the scrambles and got a 2.68 average. This is the scramble I had for my last solve of round 2, and a good solution I missed is inserting this piece on green like that, which cancels a lot into EG1. So you can do these 4 moves and then finish off with the EG1 like that, which probably would have been good enough for a sub 1. My next competition wasn't for almost 2 months, so I decided to learn TCL. TCL is a method on 2x2 where you have 3 pieces of a layer solved, and the last one is inserted but twisted in its place. Going into the competition, I was averaging about 1.6 to 1.7 at home, so if I got some good scrambles, it was definitely possible. Sadly, in round 1, the exact opposite happened. I got quite bad scrambles and wasn't able to find anything good on them, leading to a 2.34 average. Now I could only hope for it in finals. Fast forward to finals, my solves were looking much better than round 1. A 1.47, 1.48, and 1.41. These solves were pretty good, except my turning on the first one wasn't great, but if my 4th solve was good, I would still have a chance. Unfortunately, it was a 2.36, meaning that my best possible average was 145, and with a 124 on the last solve, that's what happened. A 145 PR average, 0.01 off OCR2. The next competition was Apollo Bay, and I really wanted at this competition because the one after was Nationals, and I thought if I still hadn't gotten it by then, I would just be too nervous to perform there. Before this competition, I learned LEG1, like EG1 but for when the bar is on the left. I was now averaging around 1.5 to 1.6 at home, meaning a 1.44 average was very doable, but this also meant I was very nervous. In round 1, the scrambles I got weren't great, and my first few solves led to a counting 1.58. After getting a 1.99 on the 4th, I knew I wouldn't have a shot this round, but still finished with an okay average of 1.70. Then came round 2. Again, I wasn't able to find any great solutions, and I started with a 1.67, 1.44, and 1.95. I then got a 204 on the 4th, which gave me a BPA of only 169, and I finished with a 1.86 to get a 1.83 average. This left me with one more round to get it before Nats. Finals was off to a bad start with a 171 and 184, followed by 2 of the worst 2x2 scrambles I've ever seen. I got a 258 and a 342. The last solve was a pretty nice 1.60, but it was a plus 2. This made the average 2.61, which still somehow came second at the competition. I was very disappointed with my results, but also none of the scrambles were really that good, which made getting OCR2 almost impossible. I thought surely Nationals would be the one where I finally got OCR2. But then, disaster struck on day 1 of the competition when I lost my main 2x2. For the rest of the day, I went around asking everyone I talked to at the competition in case any of them had accidentally taken it, as well as asking the delegates numerous times if anyone had handed in a lost 2x2. But with no success, I went into 2x2 round 1 the next day using Phoenix's cube, and after solving on it for 5 minutes before the round, I didn't have high expectations. It started off better than I thought, with a 1.50 and a 1.47. The next solve I messed up quite badly and got a 2.87. I then countered the 2.87 with a 5.79 on the fourth. The last solve again, my turning was absolutely horrible and I got a 3.21, giving me a 2.53 average. Later that night, I was talking to some friends on Discord about who might have taken my cube, and I was pretty sure I knew who had it. On the morning of day 3, I got my 2x2 back just before competing in round 2, giving me much more hope for the 2 remaining rounds. In round 2, I decided to try a strategy where I would just turn a little bit slower than normal in order to make my turning have less mistakes. This worked very well, and my average started with a 1.43, a 1.21, and a 1.66. This meant I had 2 chances to get a 1.24 or better. Then, something interesting happened on the fourth solve. This solve was a 1.71, and I thought it was fine since I never turned the cube before I reset the timer. On the last solve, I went all out to try and get OCR2, but it didn't work out and I got a 2.72. After this solve, I was told by a delegate that my fourth had to be DNF because starting the timer meant starting the solve. This counted the 2.72, leading to a 1.94 average, which still made me the top Australian seed going into finals. After everything that had happened over the last few days, all I wanted in finals was a podium. I had my earmuffs on, locked in, and ready to solve. I reminded myself to go safe, make sure my solution worked, and turn a bit slower than usual. The first solve had quite a nice solution, and I got a 116, a great start. The next solve I found another quite good solution, and got a 1.36, continuing the great pace. Once again, the third scramble was quite nice and I executed it well, getting a 112. Immediately, my mind went to OCR2. I realized with this crazy start, I didn't even need to get a time that was good for me to get OCR2, but I was already nervous from being in Nationals finals. Would I be able to do it? I had 2 shots at a 181 or better. The fourth scramble was again pretty good, but not as good as the first 3. But the nerves got to me, and I messed up the turning, getting a 201. Then the last cube came. When I saw the scramble, I knew it was possible to get a 181 on. I got a 182, meaning my average was 1.45, 0.01 off again. However, this average still placed me second, which I was incredibly happy with, so being 0.01 off didn't bother me too much. I had another competition the weekend after, the Big Cube Melbourne 2024. This competition had 3 more rounds of 2x2, 3 chances to get OCR2. When I sat down for round 1, I was already very nervous. The first loop wasn't a great scramble, which led to a 165. The second scramble again wasn't the best, and I messed up my solution, getting a 216. I already knew this was not going to be the round. The next solve, I saw something quite good, but when I did my solution, I was left with a J-perm. So this solve was a 275. The next scramble didn't look good at first, but then I found a pretty good 7 mover. Unfortunately, I messed up the solution and got a 234, which had to be plus 2'd because I over-inspected a little bit. The last solve once again was a nice solution, and since I wasn't that nervous from the awful start, I managed to get a nice 109 single, my second best in competition. In round 2, I started off with a 132. Solve 2 had a very good scramble, but I messed up my solution and plus 2'd, finishing with a 3.36. The third solve was quite nice again, and I got a 125. This was quite annoying because if I didn't mess up my second solve, I would have been on very good pace. The next solve was another nice scramble, but I messed it up and got a 1.80, meaning this round wouldn't be OCR2 either. The last scramble was quite bad, and I got a 1.23 and a 1.78 average. Finals started off with a not great scramble and a not great time, 1.99. The second scramble was very good, however, but like a lot of other solves from this comp, I choked it and got a 152. The third scramble was also quite nice, but the same thing happened and I got a 151. Both the second and third scrambles had potential to be around 1.1s. Then, on the fourth solve, I found a good solution and my turning was good, which led to a 1.20. Despite the chokes on the second and third, I still only needed a 1.30 to get OCR2, and when I saw the scramble, I thought I might get it. Sadly, just like the solves from earlier, I messed it up and got a 164. This gave me a 1.56 average, which despite me messing up most of the solves, I came first, which made up for the bad solves a bit. The day after, Alexander Vucic set a New Zealand national record average of 1.37, lowering the OCR2. I decided I was going to keep trying to break the 144 as that was what I'd been going for months, but beating 1.37 was still quite doable. I knew my next competition wasn't for a while, not until October 5th. Not long after the Big Cube, I ordered a new 2x2 to use as a backup after what happened at Nationals, but I found myself preferring the new cube over my old one. I also learned LS 1 to 3, which is when you have 3 out of 4 pieces in the layer solved, and solve the rest in one algorithm. 1 to 3 meaning when you have the last piece facing up. Going into the competition, I was averaging 1.3 to 1.4, making OCR2 or NR2 very doable. In round 1, I was very nervous, but I tried my best to calm my nerves, and just like Nationals, go safe. I started well with a 1.30, followed by a 1.36. The third scramble wasn't the best, and I got a 1.73, but I didn't worry much about it. On the fourth solve, it took me a while to find a good solution, and my execution was a little rough, but I still got a 1.44. On the last solve, I needed a 153 for NR2 and a 132 for OCR2. Again, it took a while to find a good solution, but I found something very nice, and I thought I was finally about to get it. Unfortunately, I realized after the solve that I missed one lift. This solve was a DNF, which still gave me an alright average of 1.51. In round 2, I started quite well with a 109, 0.01 away from my PR single of 108. On the second solve, I found a very good solution and got a 0.95, my first official sub 1. This set me up very well for the rest of the average. The third solve was a pretty good scramble, and again I got a 152. This meant I had 2 chances of getting a 172 for NR2 and a 151 for OCR2. The fourth scramble was pretty good, but due to nerves, I didn't execute it well and got a 175. I asked my judge to calculate what I had locked and found out I had a 145 average, but I still had another solve to improve it. On the last scramble, I found something decent, good enough for NR2 or even OCR2. I got another DNF because I messed up my last few moves. This would have been a 1.40 average without the DNF, and meant I got a 1.45 tied PR average, 0.01 off again. The first solve wasn't the best scramble, but I executed it well and got a 155. The second solve was a good scramble and I got a 106. Once again on the third solve, I had a good scramble, but my execution wasn't great, leading to a 159. I knew I would need a good solve for a chance, but the fourth scramble wasn't great, so I went all out. With a 1.46, I needed a 132 for NR2 and a 111 for OCR2. Then, after checking the scrambles, it was discovered that solve 1 and 2 were missed scrambles, and I would have to do an extra solve to replace them both. They later announced that finals was being redone due to all the missed scrambles, giving me one more chance this competition. After redoing finals, I pulled out an even better 1.30 average, OCR2 and 41st in the world. After 22 rounds and 238 days, I became the second fastest 2x2 solver in Oceania.